and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Jericho, and our guest today is Mr. Chit Win. Now, Mr. Win is currently a doctoral candidate in the Department of Political and Social Change at the Bell School of Asia Pacific Affairs of Australian National University College of Asia and the Pacific. Now, he also serves as the Deputy Director of Myanmar's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And during his career as a diplomat, he was in charge of various Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, matters and bilateral relations for the Myanmar government. He has also authored numerous articles and academic pieces about Myanmar's changing economic and socio-political climates. So today, Mr. Win will expand on how changes in the country's socio-political environment has played a significant part in Myanmar's transforming economy. Mr. Win, thank you for joining us today, and welcome to IU.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So since you're in IU and you're visiting, I'm curious, what is your reason for coming to IU, and what really brought you here?
Well, ANU and IU had a very good relationship. They have a institute called ANU-IU Pan-Asian Institute. So they have an exchange program. So and I applied for that, and I learned that at the IU, IU had a very good resources on this constitutional democracies.
Okay, so you're a doctoral candidate, and I'm assuming you have some dissertation that you're working on. Could you maybe expand on that a little bit and tell us, what it's about, the title, and all of that?
Right. Well, first of all, I think maybe I have to let you know about my background. As you mentioned, I'm from the Foreign Ministry, and this is in this period of transition, I was honored to have a first doctoral candidate from representing the Foreign Ministry to do a doctoral dissertation abroad. So, and that's how I arrived to Australia. So my dissertations looks at, in this period of transition, the role of the legislature in Myanmar. So how does it play in this period of transition?
Very interesting. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about Myanmar's economy now. According to the Asian Development Bank, and I have the statistics here, Myanmar has certainly seen a lot of tremendous economic growth. This year alone, some GDP growth of 8%, hovering around 8%, despite some of the natural disasters the country faced over the summer. In your experience and in your opinion, having worked with different ASEAN economic partners and having led and first-handedly seeing this economic change in the government and in the country, what do you think are some wise strategies that could be in place to sustain this economic growth that you're seeing now?
Myanmar has been, outside of this international market, outside of the international community for quite some time because of the various sanctions and international pressure imposed on it. But since 2011, it has experienced a series of transitions and reform measures, liberalizations, and so we see a lot of the sanctions were revoked and the foreign direct investments were coming in. But like you said, we also face a number of natural disasters and also challenges receiving all this kind of foreign direct investment. But nevertheless, we see a lot of the economy is in upward. So I think my take is that the economy is still absorbing the foreign direct investment, but in the short term, there are some challenges. The infrastructure may not be cope up with the flow of the foreign investment. The infrastructure, I mean, there are two types. So the first one is the infrastructure like electricity, the roads, and the communication. The other one will be more of the governance. So we need to have a sound foreign direct investment law, and how do we solve in case of disputes? How do we have a sound dispute settlement mechanism? So things like that, these are very important for Myanmar in the short term. But for the long term, I would guess Myanmar may need to enhance its entrepreneurship in Myanmar in order to keep abreast with all the ASEAN partners in the region.
Well, you earlier on hinted at the fact that Myanmar has undergoing some socio-political changes, and it's a fact. I mean, we see it in the news, we see it in different media outlets, and I think just this past week, the country underwent a parliamentarian elections,
That's right.
and that made quite some splash in the media itself as well. So do you think due to these sociopolitical changes that are happening right now, which is extremely rampant, do you think there will be any significant economic opportunities as well as challenges for both domestic and international businesses who who already have businesses in Myanmar or are looking into starting?
Well, since the transitions that started in 2011, everybody has been focusing on what will happen in 2015 beyond after the election, and we've been holding our breath, to see this election. So this election, I think, brings two things. So one is the people hope, desire to cast their vote and to express their vote freely. So that is one thing. And the second thing is whether these results will be realized and whether the transition will be smooth from one government to the next. And this is what is very important and it can be very fragile. So and I think the international community, the business partners, the foreign direct investments are all waiting for that thing to see the result. So actually, it is not the election result what is important. It is the transition, the smooth transition, which is more important. So, in my opinion, I think after the elections, there will be a rise in the tourism sector and also the foreign direct investment. So I think Myanmar will have a busy time. But I think that comes also with a challenge. Like I said previously, the infrastructure has to cope up with these high demands of the foreign direct investment, the skilled workers as well. But I think the challenge will be, we always talk about the foreign direct investment coming in, good for the country, blah, blah, blah. But then at the end of the day, it will be the access to the market. So like right now, if you see to the ASEAN partners, so our access to the market is quite limited. It has to be through other ASEAN countries such as Singapore or Thailand or even China. And most of our exports are directly to those neighboring countries. So how do we diversify those countries, diversify the market? It will be the challenge for Myanmar.
Well, lastly, in wrapping things up, we talked about different aspects of the challenges, but also opportunities. So especially for international businesses and U.S. businesses in particular who are very much interested in foreign direct investments as well as different opportunities that will be arising very soon, what kind of undiscovered sectors should they also be looking into, just be more than just the FDIs or the foreign direct investments we talked about?
Undiscovered. Well, the country itself is an untapped market, first of all. So I think it's also very new to everyone. So when they come in, they will see a lot of potentials and everything. But and I think a lot of these sector has been now well noted by the international community and the investors. But to my take, the untapped market for Myanmar would be, as you know, we have a peace process going on with the ethnic armed groups in the borderland areas where the ethnic nationalities are living. So these areas are quite unexplored area, and we can see a lot of potential for tourism and also for extractive industries there to discover. So these are the areas where we can work on it. Another thing, which can be a little bit also, what do I say, it's not based on the market, would be the food, the Myanmar food. What I think, it's a pity in Indiana we only have only Myanmar restaurant where we can have several Chinese and Thai and restaurant here. So Myanmar is enjoyed, being surrounded by India, China, and Thailand. So our food are not as spicy as India, not as sweet as China, and not as hot as Thai. All mixed, very colorful, and we have a range of food available. And I think all the foreigners who come into to Myanmar love it. So I think we can use this kind of diversified food to export it to international, so that at the end of the day, probably one day, the food court we'll serve this kind of Myanmar food. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Win, thank you so much for coming in to speak with us and giving us your insights.
Right. Thank you very much.
Well, that's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for joining us. Now, if you have any comments or suggestions for other future topics, please let us know at cyber.ciber@indiana.edu.